Hello, welcome back to the channel. So I've been in my Nuuna bullet journal for about 8 months now. I just completed my August setup and I'm still trucking right along in it. So I may even be able to fit this entire year in this thing, which is honestly pretty rare for any bullet journal that's used on a daily basis. I've mentioned in just about every video something that I like or dislike about this journal, and since it's not one of those brands that you see a lot in the bullet journaling community like Archer and Olive or Scribbles That Matter or Dingbats, I thought it would be interesting and maybe even a bit helpful if you're in the market for a new bullet journal to talk about my experience with this one and just show you some of the ins and outs, the pros and cons, and just even some of the modifications that I've made to make it work for me. So yeah, let's get into it. My current bullet journal is the Nuuna Graphic Smooth Bonded Leather Notebook. I got this one in a museum shop in Paris, and I found out later that you can get it on Amazon, and I'll of course have it linked down in the description for you. But yeah, I was really drawn to this curved, striped cover design and the fact that the design bleeds onto the edges of the paper. I love that so much. My French is kind of busted, but bear with me. The cover says PRET-a-Ecrire, which means ready to write. The cover has gotten a bit dirty over the last 8 months, but I was able to clean it really easily with just water, and everything came off fairly easy, which I thought was a great feature. Okay, the size of the journal is pretty interesting as well. It's 8.66 inches by 6.5. So it's a bit larger than the typical A5 journals you see, but not as large as a B5. To do a quick comparison, here's an A5 Archer and Olive journal. And here's a B5 journal. So you can see it's really just the perfect happy medium between those two sizes, and I do enjoy having that extra room. The back cover of the journal did not come with a back pocket or anything, which I found really disappointing since I do like to keep extra dot grid scraps back there to fix mistakes as well as little notes or paper keepsakes. So to fix this, I glued an envelope back there and it has been working beautifully, so no complaints there. Since we're talking about modifications, a more major modification I made to the journal was adding in an elastic closure. Funny enough, this journal did not come with one, and I totally just didn't even notice when I got it. So I was a bit surprised that it didn't have one. Now, this may not be a big deal to you, but I know how I am, and I know I slip things in my journal pages from time to time, and I don't know, the elastic just keeps everything in. And even without anything slipped in, it just keeps the pages protected and tight, so I definitely needed one. I will try to find the how-to video and link it down in the description, but I basically cut some slots in the back cover and ran the elastic through those holes. I secured them with staples. I was honestly shocked that this even worked as well as it had, especially because of, staples. I was surprised it went through the cover, and the cover's pretty durable. I was also surprised that it didn't snag on anything, but yeah, super happy with how this hack turned out, and I honestly forget sometimes that it wasn't there on day one. There are 256 pages in this journal, which is, just fantastic. That's probably one of my favorite features of this journal. This is where I am with the journal right now, 8 months in, so I'm pretty confident that I can finish off all of 2020 in here before moving into a new journal. And bonus points here, they are pre-numbered pages, which is a major feature and a major time saver in my opinion. Now let's look at the color of these pages. It's very much so a Goldilocks, middle of the road color situation. It's not bright white like the Archer and Olive notebooks, but it's not that creamy, more off-white color you see sometimes, like in my very first bullet journal here. I'm not sure how well the camera is picking up this color difference here, but it's pretty much right in the middle of a bright white and an off-white, so definitely take that into consideration if you have a preference. Okay, let's look at these dots. The dots themselves are pretty light, which I personally like just because the dots aren't distracting once a spread is completed, and you can see what's going on and use them as a guide still. However, the thing I dislike most about this journal is the dot grid spacing. It's so tight, and I feel like I complain about this in just about every video. If you have smaller handwriting, this might be your jam, but the standard dot grid spacing is 5 millimeters from one dot to the next. In this journal, I measured it and it was 3.5 millimeters, so just a tad over half the size it should be. So with that, you can fit a lot on the page. You really can. But yeah, it's just really tight and it took some getting used to for sure. Actually, by the end of January, I was 100% thinking I was just going to start a new journal. After all the hacking and setting it up, just because of the dot grid spacing alone. But you know, I'm glad I didn't, and I sort of pushed through that. It's allowed me to find ways to just problem solve. I don't know, as much as I complain about the dot grid spacing, I think now, at this point, it's a part of the book's charm. And it's still my least favorite thing though. The last thing we're going to look at with this journal is the page GSM, or basically how thick the pages are and what sort of media can it hold without showing through too crazy on the other side of the page. This journal has 120 GSM, which is pretty middle of the road as well. It's not as thick as the Archer and Olive notebooks that have 160 GSM, but it still holds up a bit compared to some of the other popular journals with thinner pages that have like 80 to 100 GSM. So you've probably heard me say in the past that I try not to color over the same spot too much, or I'm using cutouts to combat that thinner paper. But you know, I gotta say overall, it's not too shabby when it comes to like what it can take. Yes, it may ghost a bit, but I've gotten away with using watercolor with it, and it's not like detrimental, like it's not crazy bleeding. So I mean, I really can't knock it too much in that department. Ooh, you know what? Let's do a mini pen test in the back of my journal to see how it goes. I'm just going to go in with a Tombow, a permanent marker, a highlighter, the new acrylograph pens, and some watercolor just to show you how the paper holds up to bleeding and ghosting. I use Tombows quite a bit in my journal for coloring large areas, and for the most part, they don't bleed or ghost at all. It's when you go over an area multiple times that you see some trouble here. Sharpies are always the problem child, I think, with just about any notebook. Quite simply, don't use them because you're going to get a mess on the next page. Highlighters work just fine in here with no bleeding and no ghosting. Now, excuse my misspelling here, but hey, new pens, new word, it happens. Anyway, these pens are amazing, and there is minimal bleeding and ghosting in this notebook, which was really great to know, but make sure you let them dry before turning the page so you don't get a little mess on the opposite page like I ended up with here. Now finally, let's go in with some watercolor. Like I mentioned before, I have used watercolor in this journal before, but you don't want to go too wild with the water because you'll end up with a bit of a warped page. But other than that, it can take a few light layers with minimal effect on the next page. And yeah, that's our mini pen test in my bullet journal. So that's pretty much my take on this Nuuna journal. Overall, it's serving me really well, and I'm happy with it and how it's really made me think about what features I like to have and utilize in my bullet journal. I've also enjoyed embracing what I don't like about it and finding ways to sort of work around the journal's flaws. I don't think I'll be coming back to Nuuna once this is filled up, but again, I will link it down in the description if it's checking all of your boxes and you want to give it a go. Let me know what you guys think of this journal down in the comments, or if you've used it before, and be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed my review of my current bullet journal 8 months in. But that's all that I have for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye guys. And if you like this video, here are a couple more I think you would enjoy.